Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Superman Lex Luthor Special Issue 1 by Joshua Williamson, Eddie Barrows, Eber Ferreira, and Adriano Lucas. The time for Lex Luthor to break bad again has finally come, but is it something that he wants to do, or is it something that he has no control over? Joshua Williamson seeks to answer this question as Lex begins to find himself pondering over a piano he has found in his personal office, learning from Lena that his mother taught him how to play when he was little. Lena reveals that she moved the piano into the office since music can help bring back memories, and maybe it will help her father retrieve what he has lost. Unfortunately, Lex doesn't think that it will work, while Superman meanwhile is contacted by Mr. Terrific, who is still looking into Darkseid's death and how when the being was obliterated, a piece of reality was hidden from them, that piece being the Absolute Universe we've been seeing over in the Absolute line of books. Williamson really brings everything he's been writing during, the dawn of DC, even stuff before that and all the Dark Crisis stuff, full circle in a cool way here, as Michael compares this new event to when he and the Totality discovered the Elseworld. And if you remember, Lex was on the Totality with members of the Justice League, but this new event goes way beyond anything he is able to wrap his mind around, and it requires someone who is able to go down a darker intellectual path, something that he knows Lex Luthor is capable of doing quite easily, and he could prove the key to unlocking Darkseid's secret. Now I really like it. This is framing Lex as kind of like an ultimate genius, since after all he is. He is a lot smarter than people like Mr. Terrific and people like Batman. It's just more often than not his arrogance, his hatred for Superman, and his self-righteousness get in the way of his genius. It's exciting to think that if this new Lex is free from that, because he's trying to be a good guy, could he still tap into that intellectual dark place Michael spoke of, or is him being quote-unquote good now something that has stopped him from doing that, like he won't go that far anymore? Such an interesting take on Lex's intellect, and a great way to frame it as something completely different than what we've usually seen. While Superman and Mr. Terrific mull over what to do next, Lex and Mercy stroll through Centennial Park, and Mercy poses Lex with a question: does he want to fix himself and return to his old self? And Lex is given pause, since while the piano from before doesn't seemingly work for him, he begins to remember memories related to the piano as he flashes back to his mother teaching him before his drunken father scolds him for the noise that he's making. Williamson has done a really good job keeping continuity with these characters, since this flashback takes place at a point where Lionel's life has been ruined by Vandal Savage after he discovered the Totality, something we saw back in Scott Snyder's Justice League book. And because of that, he has become a broken shell of a man. He's become an alcoholic, and he's abused his wife and his son, and it's why they all kind of left him to die alone. Lex is broken from his memory when a woman throws coffee in his face, causing a group to surround Lex and demand that he be put back in prison for what he has done to Metropolis and its people. Luckily, Superman swings by to calm things down, but Lex wants to own up to the fact that he has ruined people's lives and deserves their anger. So if you've been keeping up with my reviews on Williamson's Superman ongoing, the one thing I've had a bit of a problem with is the lack of focus on this version of Lex. Like, his story feels like it's become secondary in that book, and we only get 1 or 2 pages, if that, each issue. And Williamson outrightly addresses that here via Superman, who is well aware they haven't actually had a chance to properly talk about what is happening to him. It's a little too late, I think, since we are heading back into a bit more of a villainous Lex, it seems, but at least it was addressed that the story has not been developed all that much, and it's not without its proper reasons though. It's not as though this was just like put on the back burner or something. Superman's been dealing with stuff like the Absolute Power event, then he's gone straight into fighting Doomsday and Time Trapper now, so it's not as though it's been empty on story, and they haven't really found that right balance of them, I don't think, and because of that, the Lex story has kind of suffered a little bit. Superman learns of the piano Lena got Lex, but it's not helping him re-find his lost memories, something which disappoints Superman since they could have used Lex's help with the Darkseid incident on the Watchtower. I really like that Lex is so apprehensive to wanting to make progress and return his memories. He's scared of the man he could become again, and it's interesting to see him actively wanting to do good. It's just something I wish we had gotten more of, and hey, maybe it won't immediately turn him back into a villain once he gets his memories back, and maybe he will still decide to be a good guy and do good. That could definitely still happen, but it definitely looks like they are leaning back towards more of a villainous Lex, because that's what we're going to get in the movies, and they need that kind of movie synergy happening, because people will go and see the movie, they want to pick up comics, and if it's drastically different in the comics, they won't, want to stick around. Lex begins to experience another memory flashback, this time with his father taking him into town to get a radio wave emitter for an invention he made that can send music into outer space via a frequency only some people will be able to hear. Being this is set in Smallville, we also get a brief glimpse of a young Jonathan and Martha Kent with baby Clark, who won't stop crying. Because of it, it draws the ire of the angry Lionel when they walk past them. This isn't the last we'll see of the young Kents, and we'll get to see a bit more of him a little later on in the issue, and it's something I actually want to talk about because it's not something I particularly like, but we'll get there. Such a memory makes Lex realize that he doesn't want to be the old Lex ever again, and Lex and Superman's conversation brings up an interesting point I hadn't really considered, as we saw Lex before the House of Brainiac working on trying to be a better man while he was in prison, and Lex here believes that he has become that because of the memory loss. He's become that better man he was walking towards. Lex also leaves Superman with kind of a tough question. Would the world be better off with Lex Luthor in it or without him? And this leaves Superman in a bit of a moral quandary, as he believes everyone has the opportunity, or should have the opportunity, to be the best versions of themselves. But this is also Lex Luthor, the man who has tried to kill him and his family and friends 100 times over. Superman is quick to leave after being posed the difficult question, visibly caught off guard by it but not answering it. However, in him not answering it, it also kind of gives Lex his answer, something which, thanks to Eddie Barrow's art, it looks like he's not very happy with and seems quite disappointed in Superman with. Thanks to this confrontation, Lex has another flashback, which sees him flee the family home after his father abuses him and calls him a freak for being able to build such a radio emitter. And I like that you can kind of see that Luthor ego come through here, where Lionel is disgusted that his son seems to be smarter than him. Like, he can't somehow get his mind around that his son would invent something that even he couldn't in his wildest dreams. Lex ends up running into a field where he uses the emitter to send out some music into the stars, but the music finds its way to the Kent farm, where Jonathan and Martha are still having trouble keeping baby Clark quiet. But upon hearing the music that only someone with a superhuman hearing could hear, Clark begins to quiet down and fall asleep. Now, this is the thing I didn't particularly like. Now, I do like that there is often in continuity, and in this continuity, Lex and Clark have had a childhood relationship at some point, because they both grew up in Smallville. They both were kind of friends with each other, more or less, until, Lex had the accident which burned off his hair and, all that sort of stuff. But this is kind of taking that a little bit too far, where now Lex inadvertently had some sort of relationship with baby Clark and helped baby Clark in some way, albeit inadvertently. It's just a little bit too much, and I think it feels like you're trying to tie the characters together a little too early and a little too much, and I don't think it probably should have been done like this. You could still do the music thing without, tying these characters together, but just felt a little bit too much for me. Lex's memories begin to allow him to play the piano again, and later as Superman and Superwoman patrol the city, Mr. Terrific contacts Clark, thanking him for getting Supercorp to help out by providing a transmitter that sends sound waves over multiversal vibrations, basically an upgraded version of Lex's one from his childhood. Michael believes that this device will allow him to eventually make contact with the other hidden world Darkseid took from them, which, like the hero says, is pretty huge, since this is kind of our first big push into bringing both the Prime Universe and the Absolute Universe together. And I'm really intrigued that this was just done in some of the back pages of a Superman special. I would have thought this would have been something in a Justice League book, but I guess they're putting quite a focus on Superman throughout the summer of Superman, because of the movie and everything, and all these special books coming out, so it would make sense that this would actually probably get more eyes on it. Superman never knew Supercorp was actually going to do any of this, and begins to hear a familiar melody play across the city, the same one he heard when he was just a child. This causes Clark to realize his worst fears have come to pass, and that Lex Luthor has begun to remember who he is. Now this is a really awesome ending. It's filled with so much tension and dread from Superman, and Williamson leaves it vague on if Lex is a bad guy or not. He's just kind of playing the piano in the dark, which does give off kind of like villainous vibes, like evil vibes, but I don't know. Seeing that he helped the League with the Darkseid problem with the transmitter, it could still very much be him trying to do good, but that could also mean he's playing some sort of long con, lying in wait for just the right moment to strike. I'm intrigued as to how Superman is going to handle this, since I feel there's going to be a sense of paranoia with him now, since he doesn't know what Lex really is, and it throws an interesting wrench into their new partnership dynamic, and it really puts Superman on the back foot for once. Lex seems rather unpredictable when he should be quite predictable, and that makes for an infinitely more exciting story than just another Lex doing evil things plotline. Lex Luthor Special Issue 1 did a damn fine job addressing Lex's recent memory issues. While I think the story should have been broached a lot sooner, Williamson does a great job working through Lex's memories and tying it to the larger Absolute Universe storyline, surprisingly. I did wish the idea of music helping Lex was used a little bit more intricately than it was, but its ties to Lex's established past and even Clark's were interesting, even though I thought tying those two together so early was a little bit too much. I can't wait to see where Williamson takes Lex now that his memories are coming back, and what's on the horizon for the Absolute Universe and the Prime Universes crossing over. I'm going to give this issue an 8 out of 10.